All right, welcome back to the show. At this time, we are joined by Patrick Loney from the Big Blue Banter, also known as B3. Welcome to the show, Patrick.
Oh, thanks for having me on the show. Appreciate it.
Well, we're glad that you're able to join us. Now, I've got to ask you, have you been able to keep safe and out of the way of this coronavirus so far?
Oh, I'm trying to. We're on stay-home orders, kind of a lockdown. But I was in Ohio a couple of days ago, and it was like a ghost town in Cincinnati, and then here's basically a ghost town as well. Hope you're doing the same over there.
Well, we're glad that you're able to be with us today and talk some Kentucky football. And of course, with the spread of the coronavirus and everything that is going on, spring practices have been canceled for the University of Kentucky. And unfortunately, I think that leaves them, like a lot of teams, in a difficult position because one of the things that I wanted to see in this spring was if Terry Wilson was not able to come back fully healthy and somebody had to challenge for this quarterback position, whether it be Sawyer Smith, who had some time last year, or whether it be the Auburn transfer Joey Gatewood, if he wasn't fully healthy, if somebody was going to be able to come and compete for that job, but now with spring practices canceled, is this really his position to lose, even if his health is not 100%?
I think it's Terry Wilson's job. Period. I don't think anyone's actually gonna come in and take it away. I think the team is behind him. And I just don't see any of the backups like Sawyer Smith, Joey Gatewood, even if we become eligible. I think there would be a set or two for Joey to play, but I think in the end Terry would be the starter for Kentucky.
Absolutely. And what have you heard about his recovery so far and how it's going?
Before everything kind of stopped and came to a halt, I was told that he was progressing really well. He was starting to throw, starting to do some things, but he was still rehabbing his knee as well.
Absolutely. And I know the coaching staff and Kentucky fans are hoping for a full recovery from Terry Wilson for many reasons, but one of the reasons being they're going to need a big season out of that quarterback position because they lost probably the most versatile player in the SEC last season in Lynn Bowden Jr., the Swiss Army knife that can throw it, he can catch it, he can run it, he can do anything that you needed him to do, and he did that for Kentucky throughout the season. And so they're going to need to replace him, and he's not a player that I believe you can replace with one guy. It's going to have to be by committee, in my opinion. So, who are some of the players, Patrick, that you're looking at and thinking that potentially as a group can help replace the production that they got from Lynn Bowden Jr.?
I think, like you said, it was like a team effort. It won't be just one person. I think Michael Drennan would be one because he's just kind of compared to Lynn as a coming in as a high ranked or high rated recruit. I think Terry Wilson came with his legs. I don't know if he's going to be as elusive as Lynn was. Of course, the running backs, Chris Rodriguez, Cavalsby Smoke, and AJ Rose and all them, but it's going to take a team effort. I mean, they're going to still miss Lynn no matter what. Lynn was generational talent per se at Kentucky, and I'm not sure there's going to be a one like him to come to Kentucky in a while.
Yeah, absolutely. And Lynn Bowden Jr. is a special athlete. And what makes him so unique and so rare and something we don't see very often is when defenses prepared for Kentucky's offense last season and they try to, prepare for Bowden Jr., the problem is that you can't just scheme for him at one position. You never know where he's going to line up and where they're going to put him, and that's so hard and so unique in this league to see. And so obviously it's going to be something they're going to miss, but they're also going to be able to attack it in a different way because Stoops has been able to stockpile talent at Kentucky in a way that we haven't seen in the past. And so, obviously by committee is going to be the way to do it. And now, talking about some of that talent that he has stockpiled, over half of the 2020 recruiting class arrived on campus early as early enrollees, hoping to get some spring practices in and some extra growth headed into fall practices of their freshman season. However, that has now been canceled out, and they're not going to see that growth that they probably had hoped for. Although there are several other things that they're going to be able to do and that they were able to do to experience some growth. During that time, even though there weren't practices, are there any of these freshmen that you heard of that were making an early impact and impression?
Oh yeah, I heard one special recruit or kid that came in early. Keaton McLean's a running back in Ohio. Uh, Grand kind of doesn't say a whole lot about the became a freshman a whole often, but this one he just couldn't stop talking about him. So he definitely caught the staff's eyes, and if the spring and all that did get canceled, I said it'd probably be a decent chance he would get up there with Kavossi Smoke and AJ Rose and them, possibly as a starter, or at least get some snaps in as a freshman.
Speaking of exceptional freshman running backs, 2020 recruit Torrance Davis has not yet signed a letter of intent with Kentucky. And he's a guy that really, really impressed me. He reminded me of really a Todd Gurley type player, so similar in their size and their speed and talent and just the different things that they do. And I hate comparing, high school recruits to all world NFL running backs, but coming out of high school, their game film reminds me a lot of one another. And so he's a player that I believe can have an instant impact for that Kentucky Wildcat team and obviously, get three really good seasons out of him before he heads to the NFL. However, he's not signed yet. Have you heard anything about his status and whether he'll be able to join the Wildcats this season?
I think the chances are still, I would say 50-50 right now. Depends a lot on, you know, the situation, the coronavirus ever, get handled. And beyond that, I think if his academics are back in line, I think there's probably a good chance that he'd be a Kentucky Wildcat before it's all said and done this season.
Yeah, I hope so. I hope he can join this team because, again, I think he could be a very special player, a guy that really flew under the radar, but a guy with a ton of talent and a guy that I hope that we can see play for Kentucky for the next several years. And for Coach Stoops and this coaching staff, I know it'll bring a lot of versatility to that offense. Now, with that said, they do have some faces they need to replace both on the offensive and the defensive line. Lost some special players there. So, my question for you is both on the offensive line and the defensive line, who are some players that you expect to step up and have big seasons next year?
Well, I think on the offensive line, if you look at Jake Pope, Eli Cox, I think those two freshmen will have a chance to play early. I think, Luke Fortner, he's kind of been under the radar somewhat, but no, he have a chance to sign coming as a senior. Junior, of course, you got Drake Jackson, Landon Young, Darren Kennard. Their offensive line is it's just talented. It's probably one of the best in the SEC, if not one of the best in the country. Um, and the defensive line, you could look at, Justin Rogers, 5-star defensive tackle who come in if there is a season, this fall. And then you Quentin Mahan, Marcon McCall. Um, he's technically not a defensive line player, but I think J.J. Weaver can really surprise some folks. He's a linebacker, but overall, I'm really excited to see how the offensive line, defensive line. I think there's a lot of talent there. I think it's going to surprise some folks.
Yeah, and that really speaks to the job that Coach Stoops has done recruiting because there used to be a time at Kentucky, had they lost a player like an all SEC lineman like Logan Stenberg, that replacing him the next season would have been almost an unsurmountable task. But they have stockpiled talent so much, and especially on the offensive and defensive line, that they're able to plug in players of equal talent and equal production year in and year out at that position. And that's really one of the reasons we've seen Kentucky now a team that really has to be reckoned with every single season.
Yes, he has, and I think uh, this last recruiting class is probably the best on both sides. You had four stars. I think on each side you had Chairman Flack's 4-star offensive lineman, and of course you had Justin Rogers, Samuel Anele, um, Trayvon Rebecca, uh, Josiah Simmons, or not Josiah Simmons, but Josiah Hayes. That everyone thought he was going Ole Miss, which then he kind of spurned Kiffin and came to Kentucky. I mean, their team is absolutely loaded on both sides of the ball, and it's probably honestly the most talented team under Stoops at Kentucky. That's saying a lot.
Absolutely. And Stoops obviously has done a good job recruiting there, as we've said. And I want to give some credit to the administration because When Stoops arrived, he didn't come with a lot of flash, but he came with a blue collar mentality, put on his work hat, and really began to build something. And they weren't impatient with him. They let him do it step by step and build it the way that he wanted to build it. And now, a much more productive and successful program than what he inherited. And with that said, this season really could be special for the Wildcats when you look at the schedule because it is a schedule that I believe is very favorable for them to have a big season. When you consider the out of conference games, Eastern Michigan, Kent State, Eastern Illinois, Louisville, these are four games that Kentucky could and should win. Then you look at their, of course, the traditional Eastern games out of the West. They pulled Auburn and, of course, Mississippi State, which is a very winnable game for them as well. And so this season, in my opinion, with this schedule, could mean a really big season in the win totals for the Wildcats. So, my question for you is this, Patrick. What is a reasonable expectation for wins this season for Kentucky?
Well, I think if the virus didn't actually happen, I would say maybe 9-3, 10-2. Now, it's uncertainty of how this player's staying condition, strength conditioning, and all that. But that's a problem across the country. So I mean, it kind of levels the playing field out some. But overall, I think 8-4, 9-3
Right.
still reasonable. I think one of the toughest games is going to be on schedule is going to be at Auburn because Auburn's always talented, and of course that stadium's always loud and
Yeah,
rocking.
yeah.
Of course, Joey Gatewood coming back. Who knows if he's going to be eligible or not. But if he is, I would be shocked if Joey plays in that game a little bit. But overall, I think there's enough talent on that team to win at least 8, 9 games.
As I look over this schedule, there's not one game that I look at and say, okay, this is a make and break for the Kentucky Wildcats schedule because I think it's more of a marathon than a sprint for the Wildcats this season. But if I look at one game and say, man, this could really determine some things, it's that second game of the season when they travel to Florida and they play them at Ben Hill Griffin Stadium. If Kentucky could sneak up on Florida that game, and I believe that they could, we've seen, how close this game has been the past couple of years. If Kentucky can sneak up on Florida and win this game, even though Florida will be absolutely favored in that game, if Kentucky can win that game, now all of a sudden the sky is the limit for this team, don't you think?
Oh no doubt. I think there's a true rivalry building between Florida and Kentucky. If you want to go back, back last time there was in Ben Hill Griffin Stadium, Kentucky stunned them. And then last season, Terry didn't get hurt, and Sorry didn't get hurt during the game. Well, Kentucky made it 2 years in a row beating Florida. There's a lot of animosity between there. Personally, I think if Terry didn't get hurt last season, I think Kentucky beats Florida. It
Right.
beats them
Right.
easily. So with Terry coming back healthy, if he is 80% as player as he was before he got hurt, I would be shocked if Kentucky went down there and beat him again. I would not be shocked one bit. As you said, they're replacing Florida, replacing a lot of firepower. Yeah, and I get it's Florida. They recruit very well every single season. But I'm not high on Dan Mullen as everyone else is
Yeah, me
because
neither.
Kentucky knows exactly what his teams are going to be. They played against Mullen's teams like every year since Stoops has been there, either at Mississippi State or at Florida. So Stoops knows exactly what's going to come to his way, and they know vice versa. But at the same time, I think Mark Stoops is a better coach. He just doesn't get the credit.
It's really phenomenal to think about the fact that Coach Stoops has got this team to a place now that 8 or 9 wins is probably going to be the over under each season that you look at headed into that season. And that's really phenomenal to think about because Kentucky used to be an afterthought, and now they're not a team that you can just look over, a team that you can just look past. And when you look at the continuity of the coaching staff, you look at the consistent recruiting and probably even more important, the player development that they have at Kentucky, it's really cool thing to look and see that this team now is a very competitive football team in the SEC.
I agree. I think what Stoops has done from when he arrived to now is a complete 180. I think uh, what he's built over the 7, 8 years he's going on now in Kentucky, that if you give, if the administration gives you time to build your program and you have your set of goals, you can see what actually happens. The win mentality where you had to win right now, you only get 1 or 2 years to do it, and then you're fired. It doesn't work. You gotta give the coaches time. And I think if you look what Mitch Barnhart and did to Stoops and what Stoops has done at Kentucky, it's no, like you say, it's no longer an afterthought. You can't just go into the schedule and start that's a win. It's not like that anymore. Kentucky is a real threat in the SEC East. You have to take them as that, or you will get beat. You cannot just sleepwalk against Kentucky.
Once again, we're talking to Patrick Loney from the Big Blue Banner. Patrick, if you would you just talk to our radio listeners and our viewers on the Dr. SEC TV network? Would you just talk to them a little bit about the Big Blue Banner and some of the things that you guys are doing? Because you really are doing a phenomenal job there. It really has become one of, if not the premier source for Kentucky news and recruiting. You guys seem to be ahead of the scoop on a lot of issues and really just doing a phenomenal job and an amazing website. Terrific job the whole staff is doing down there. So could you just take a few minutes and talk to the listeners and viewers about the Big Blue Banner and where they can find you guys at?
Absolutely. So Big Blue Banter, you can find on Twitter at Blue Banter, and you also can find it on the site www.bluebanter.com. But as the publisher and lead guy who does recruiting, you can't find a scoop quicker than we do. I mean, we always
Right.
looking at things differently. We try, I always try to get the scoop first. That's not always going to happen, but there's a lot of things that I know right now that I haven't posted that people don't know that I'm going to post pretty soon this week about a couple of kids that are committed elsewhere at West Virginia, Ohio State, that's getting some significant interest at Kentucky and they're interested back. So I think there's some interesting developments recruiting wise that if you're a UK fan, you need to come over. We're doing a $1 1 month thing right now. I mean, it's just $1 and you get the scoop instantly. So if you listen to UK fans, come over to bigbluebanter.com right now.
Once again, we're talking to Patrick Loney from the Big Blue Banter. As always, Patrick, we appreciate you taking some time and being with us. And of course, we're going to have you on soon, and we're going to be talking just recruiting for Kentucky about some of the players that have already committed, as well as some of the players that perhaps are in the barrel getting ready to pull the trigger and commit to Kentucky. So we're looking forward to having you on again real soon and appreciate you being on for this show.
Well, I appreciate it and thank you for having me on the show. For having